is foul and foul is fair. Hover through the fog and filthy
Hi there folks, this is a response video to a sex worker questionnaire by Loreleila. Loreleila, thank you so much for taking the time to come up with this questionnaire. I think the questions are excellent, and thank you so much for actually listening to sex workers. I hope that you find my answers helpful. I did enter the sex industry out of necessity, but I had other options available to me, so it was also a choice. At the time, I felt that it was my best option, and I still believe that it was. And I entered the sex industry through a friend who was already a sex worker in the area that I got into. Knowing the amount of money that I could potentially make in the sex industry definitely attracted me. Also, the idea of being able to make my own hours and set up my own boundaries and enjoy many of the things that self-employed people do also attracted me to the sex industry. I was involved already in the fetish community before I got into the sex industry, and that's the area that I worked in the industry, was fetishes. So being able to get paid for something that you enjoy is definitely a bonus as well. At the beginning I did. I had to overcome a lot of the indoctrination that was imposed on me, and I think that is imposed on all of us in general. It took some work, but once I was able to see things clearly and actually think for myself, the regret went away very quickly. By and large, I would say no. There have been a couple of clients that have repulsed me, and not because of how they look physically or the fact that they pay for sexual services, but because they were assholes, and if that was the case, I just wouldn't see them. Physical appearance made no difference to me either way, except for perhaps personal hygiene. What attracted me to certain individuals was their personalities, and I had clients who were fantastic people. They would pay just like everyone else and make appointments just like everyone else. I guess the difference would be is that they would have the opportunity to attend fetish nights with me and gatherings with other mistresses and stuff. And if they were extremely exceptional individuals, then they could potentially become a personal slave. It's not something I have done, but if I was single at the time and the right person came along, it's something I probably would have tried. I do have friends who are current or former sex workers who are involved with clients, actually quite a few of them, and every relationship so far has actually been fantastic for them. Many of my friends are current or former sex workers, so in that way I have been very lucky. My partner knew that I was a sex worker before we got together, and I remained a sex worker for quite a few years after we got together, and he was fantastic about it. We had to negotiate some of the details, but he was very supportive. And as far as my family goes, some of them know now, and those who do know have been excellent, surprisingly. So I think in general I have been more lucky than many sex workers are. Indeed, I have in various different ways, anywhere from, people who I've known for many years finding out that I was a sex worker. They would look at me differently. I had a few guys who I'd known for a long time who decided that they wanted to have sex with me, and if I had refused, they would be extremely offended because they had it in their mind that sex workers would have sex with anyone and everyone. To activists who saw me as less credible, not only because I was a sex worker, but because I wasn't ashamed of it. In a situation where I went to press charges, it wasn't sex worker related, but they had found out that I was a sex worker, and it made it more difficult for me to press charges, to getting employment, especially within jobs that would be considered feminist jobs, like women's centers, assault centers, shelters and stuff. They found out about some of the activism I did around sex work, and almost always I was refused even an interview. So that's something I've had to hide, unfortunately, if I want to get employment outside of the sex industry. Unless I'm sexually attracted to an individual, I really don't care either way. If they do find me sexually attractive, then they can keep it to themselves. This isn't something I really focus on in myself. I would prefer to be seen as a good person than as sexy, if you will. I am currently retired now, and I have been for almost 4 years. And the field I'm working on getting into is commercial sustainable agriculture. I think most of the mainstream perceptions surrounding sex work are very misguided and very troubling. They alienate sex workers. They are dangerous for sex workers. They leave sex workers as essentially sitting ducks for serial killers, rapists, corrupt law enforcement, and for the legal system itself in a lot of cases. And when sex workers come out and try to change these perceptions, we get a lot of hell for it a lot of the time. And we have a lot of work to do. I think ultimately that's the bottom line. Sex workers have a lot of work to do. I perceived myself to be someone who made the best possible choice at the time, and it turned out very well for me. As far as how I see other people in the sex industry, I think it's up to them to dictate how they should be seen, whether they consider themselves a slave or a victim, or someone who's empowered, someone who's just a working person, and all of the things in between. It's up to them. I can't label them. No one else can label them. Only they can honestly label themselves. I would probably have to see a combination of both powerful and vulnerable for the most part. Thanks again for the survey, Loreleila, and thanks to everyone else for watching. Slancha.